Hello, all you oddballs. Welcome back to the Average Oddcast. I'm your host, Mike Heath. It is such an honor to have you back in the lab for another week. The year is off to a great start, wouldn't you say? I mean, there was some tragic things that happened last year, and I think we're all excited that we're now in 2024, that we don't have to deal with the atrocities that we collectively experienced in 2023, namely that you could no longer share your Netflix password. That is true. That is something that we all experienced. For many of us who didn't have our own Netflix account, we were using our parents' Netflix. They gave us the old stanky boot. I wish there was a way to know you're in the good old days before you've actually left them. We can think back to, what was it, 2013 maybe, where Netflix tweeted out love is a shared password, and here we were in 2023, and that wasn't the case anymore. Love was a bottom line, making that cash flow, and they kicked us all out. Here we are, and there's no Netflix for us. And maybe, you haven't visited your parents recently. When was the last time that you visited your parents? That's a question that I'm going to ask you right now. I would like you to reflect on.
With comedy in a van down by the river, in our oddly funny world. We all live in an oddly funny world. Oddly funny world. Oddly funny world. We all live.
Maybe you've lost access to Netflix and you don't have the money to sign up, and you haven't even visited mama and daddy very recently, so you can go take a trip home and visit them, and you can watch Netflix with them. And in fact, I have a recommendation. You should watch Dusty Slay's brand new Netflix comedy special, Workin Man. It's phenomenal. It's great fun that you can have with your parents in the room, because you're going to go visit them because you don't have Netflix. So I'm assuming that you haven't watched his special, and I'm wondering, what are you doing with your life? How have you not watched what I would say is maybe, I mean, if I could be so bold to say, is it's probably going to be your new favorite comedy special, if I'm quite honest, especially if you're a working man, or maybe you're a working woman, or maybe you're just a Charlie, who works in big tech, but for some reason can't afford Netflix, and maybe even has Netflix. Maybe you were sharing your password with your parents, kind of providing for them in that way. Why don't you invite them over for some kebabs and fire up the old television, click on Dusty Slay? Because I want to make a bet with you. I want to bet you that you have never heard a joke about biscuits. Maybe I could just stop right there, but let me just go a little bit further, that you've never heard a joke about biscuits that's this funny. I think this special by Dusty Slay will cement him as the best joke writer about the topic of biscuits. I would challenge someone, come at Dusty. Write a better biscuits joke. I dare you. I'm going to put 50 push-ups on that right now. Show me a better biscuit joke than Dusty's. I'll do 50 push-ups for you on the spot. Not in one full set. I'm not that strong yet. I'm getting back in the gym. New year, new me. But I'm not quite there yet. But I want to share, because maybe I haven't convinced you quite yet. And that's a shame, really. Now I'm not going to shame on you, shame off you, but let me just play a small clip, 1 minute from his new special. This is on Dusty's YouTube. So hopefully I don't get hit with rights and all that, but here we go. Dusty Slay.
I like small talk in general. A lot of people say if you're talking about the weather, then you've run out of things to talk about, but I like to lead with weather. Weather's what I want to talk about. Like if I go outside and it's real hot, I have to say out loud. I can't just think it. I have to go, dang, it's hot. Even when I'm alone, I have to say it. Then if I see somebody on the street, I'll try to make eye contact with them. I'll go, it's hot out here, huh? And if they're into it, we'll talk about the weather for a while. I'll start telling them about weather of other places I've been. I'm like, it's hot here, but last week I was in Michigan. Guess what? It was cold.
It is cold in Michigan.
That? Then I'll pull out my phone and show them a screenshot of the weather app. And I'll hold it there till they acknowledge it. I'm sorry, that locked up on you in there. Realized I was holding it for 2 minutes.
That's so good. What I love about Dusty's comedy, it's so relatable, and you'll have a good time watching it. I guarantee you that. But if you watch the special, you will get that if you didn't get that yet. But one more time for Dusty Slay, everybody. Very good stuff. Incredible. Again, I don't want you to forget this bet. And I'm willing to, till the day I die, this bet is out there. So, I don't know how much time I have left on this earth. Please God, let it be, enough time. That's all. Maybe that's a good phrase. Maybe our prayer shouldn't even be for a long, prosperous life, but just give me enough time, God. That's my prayer. Give me enough time. That's that'll preach. I mean, I'm just sitting on that right now, and you can take that. You can preach that. You can share that with a friend. I don't need any claim for that, man. This joke about biscuits is Dusty's joke about biscuits really got me, if I'll be honest with you, kind of threw me into the ocean of emotion, thinking about what is a biscuit? How did we get our modern day biscuits? What is the difference between a biscuit and a roll? And even further, I was thinking about this question, and maybe I'll ask it to you, is, okay, so let's say you're a time traveler and you could go back to whenever we started making biscuits. You don't have your iPhone, so you don't have the internet. All you have is what you currently, you can't chat GPT this before you go. It's just your current knowledge of biscuits. Could you go back in time and beat the person who ever invented biscuits? Could you beat them? My guess is that only 30% of Americans could go back in time and beat the biscuit, or beat them to the biscuit, be a biscuit beater, have the best biscuit first, or just have a biscuit first. The first biscuit eater. They could be the first biscuit eater, first biscuit maker. And I tried to look it up because, like, how much would we have to go back to? And that really kind of threw me into a lot of research about the history of biscuits. So I wanted to share what I learned with you guys, you oddballs, because I think it's really quite interesting. And we're going to come back to this question once we figure out where biscuits really started. Because this is an iconic food. If you could think about, the glory of biscuits and gravy, biscuits and jam, sweet biscuits, savory biscuits. I mean, we've got all kind of biscuits, but where did they come from? And do you know the word for biscuit actually comes from Latin, which I feel like a lot of English words do, but it comes from the Latin biscoctus, which means twice baked, which is maybe a clue as to how you would make a biscuit twice baked. I don't actually never cooked or baked biscuits, so I don't know if that's what we used to do or if we still do that. But and I believe it actually we know about these from the medieval times, which was in the middle of the Evil Age, I believe, when Sauron was ruling Middle Earth, and they resembled what we now know as biscotti, which is something that you would dip in a cup of coffee, really. And this might not be your Roman Empire, but did you know that soldiers in the Roman Empire were given biscuits as part of their rations? So this is something that, for maybe in the times of Jesus, man, I think Jesus was eating biscuits. So whenever he was breaking bread with the disciples, I don't know, but potentially the first communion meal was actually with biscuits, which is pretty significant. But if I could take you back to the year 1588, biscuits were introduced to Great Britain, the motherland for us whites, and that was also included as rations for sailors. And what was really cool about these biscuits, they were called hard track. They were hard, flavorless biscuits. They're nothing like biscuits and gravy today. They kept well. They were very durable. And what's so crazy is that hard track biscuits that were used in the 1500s in Great Britain with these sailors, they were not only eating them, but they were using them as postcards. And I think that's something that is probably beyond what we can imagine for biscuits today. You never think about, while you're eating a biscuit, you're in, let's say you're in Paris visiting the Eiffel Tower, other stuff in Paris. Like, I should send a postcard to grandma or to mum, to Grammy mams, to ma'am. She would love a postcard, and then you're at a cafe and you're just like, I'll just use this biscuit, throw a stamp on there. Well, that's what they were doing in the 1500s. Really quite incredible. So there were some groundbreaking innovations that took place in history that really elevated the biscuit game. One of the most notable ones was in the year 1843, and that's when Alfred Bird, a British chemist, he would make the first form of baking powder. And this was in an effort to alleviate ailments with his wife's allergy to yeast. So his wife did not wasn't receiving yeast super well. I guess before all the biscuits were unleavened. And to be honest, I feel like I should know what unleavened means, but I think the invention, what happened was baking powder, baking soda came along. It was in 1846, the Arm & Hammer company marketed baking soda to the masses. So 3 years after Alfred invented it or discovered it, or however he did, good old Mr. Bird, for his wife, Arm & Hammer, they mount up, they're marketing it. I don't know what marketing was like in 1846. This is really kind of an interesting thought. Did you actually know that so if you can think about Arm & Hammer, it's that iconic yellow box, right? With the strong arm that's depicting Vulcan, the Roman god of fire and metalworking, which doesn't make a ton of sense to me about what that has to do with baking soda. That's just something that I learned throughout this process. So I guess baking powder and soda made it so that you could have leavened biscuits. Again, I don't know what that means. But later on in 1863, so this is almost 20 years later, there was another biscuit breakthrough. And what happened was, so already in the South of America, household kitchens, business kitchens, they were loved. There was a biscuit blow up, and it was actually the creativity and resourcefulness of black bakers that led to the popularization of biscuits throughout the country. And namely, there was one well-respected caterer, Alexander Ashbourne, AA. He was born enslaved in Philly, and at the city's this is a big word. Sorry, folks. Emancipation celebration in 1863. He had noticed the irregular forms that biscuits that were served, and to give him an idea, over the next decade, he refined the design for a spring-loaded biscuit cutter, and it was in 1875. So he was stamping out biscuits, probably similar to what we have today. In 1875, he patented it. And because we're Americans, that wasn't good enough for us. we needed another innovation, another invention, another biscuit breakthrough to make it easier, because the name of a game in America is comfort. It is convenience. It is ease. And that came in the year 1931. It was a pivotal year for the biscuit industry. Lively Willoughby, who was a Kentucky inventor, attained a patent for refrigerated biscuit dough in a tube. Does that sound familiar to you? Pop, you unpeel it. Now, I don't know if they were doing this back in 1931, but you can think about those biscuits where you peel a little bit and then you have that moment of terror where you tap it on the kitchen counter and it explodes. I mean, I think about some traumatizing moments as a child the first time you're trying to open up that biscuit roll. These oven-ready biscuits became very popular. And you fast forward to today, and biscuits are all over the place. I mean, almost every fast food joint has, especially for breakfast, has some sort of like biscuit. Chick-fil-A, McDonald's, Hardee's was actually the first to add biscuits, or Carl's Jr. for who knows why that happens. But I grew up with Hardee's. I was eating Hardee's, and I can actually think about, I think it was like the cinnamon raisin biscuits they used to have. I don't think they do them anymore, but I remember my grandpa on the way to school, sometimes we'd stop by Hardee's and we'd get that cinnamon raisin biscuit, and it was drizzled with hot icing. Gosh, that takes me back. Those are beautiful memories. I love a good biscuit. One of those breakfast biscuits. So what I want to know is, all right, let's just say you went back to the medieval times, or really any point in history in one of these, with these breakthroughs. Do you think that you could beat the biscuit maker? Could you do it? Could you bring that buttermilk goodness to them? And it's okay if not. Honestly, I think if I went back without a smartphone, without access to the internet, I couldn't do it. I still, even throughout my research, I don't really remember. I think you're going to be like water and flour. I would probably try to bake it twice. I'd put some water and flour. I'd probably roll it up in a ball, and I'd put it in an oven or over fire if we didn't have an oven at that point. I'm not sure if I don't think they had ovens really in the medieval ages. They probably had fire. That's what I would do. I hope this is really interesting to you, because I think, again, it's all about the biscuit, baby. And one other question really that I've been thinking about, what's the difference between can I just blow your mind for a second? What is the difference between a biscuit and a roll? Think about a Hawaiian sweet roll and a biscuit. It's one of those, I feel like, philosophical questions that is really hard to define, but you know it when you see it. But if you have a good answer to this, I would love to know. Write in, maybe leave us a voicemail, call in, and let us know maybe two things. Yeah, do you think you could go back and beat the biscuit maker, or really, what's the difference between a biscuit and a roll? I would love. I mean, this probably isn't the most important conversation that's happening in America right now, but it sounds like a good one to have. Something that, we could all agree upon, just literally the difference between a lake and a pond. These are the kind of questions that may be hard to define. And speaking of definitions, actually, I've been thinking a lot about maybe in this podcast and really maybe the segments that would incorporate and just experiment with some fun things. And I want to roll out a brand new segment to the Average Oddcast. It is Fictionary or Dictionary.
You keep using the word. I don't think it means what you think it means.
I understand nothing.
Fictionary or Dictionary. And the name of the game really is not to define or figure out if these words or worlds are fake or real, but really for us to collectively maybe get some momentum around if these fake words should go into our actual dictionaries. And the very first Fictionary or Dictionary word is floordrobe. This is a noun, and it means the clean pile of clothes that accumulates on the floor due to compulsively changing your outfit. So how this would work out, let me just play this out. Can you they would say in like a spelling bee, can you use this in a situation or like in a sentence or a situation? I don't know. I've never been to a spelling bee before, but here's how I imagine this going down is I was never invited. It's not that I don't think I could have been in one. It's just I was never invited to a spelling bee, but here's how I imagine. So you wake up and it's a Tuesday and you have a big interview, right? Or you have a big date. You have a big date or a big interview. You choose and you put on one outfit and you're like, it doesn't feel right. So instead of hanging all of those clothes back up or folding them up, you kind of toss them on the ground. So then, 10 minutes later, you've gone through 5 outfits and now you're like, I gotta go. I gotta be there in 20 minutes and it's like a 15-minute drive. So you just leave that on. So that's a clean pile of clothes. It's not a dirty pile of clothes, but that's now your wardrobe. My question to you is, and what I would like us to discover together over this next week until we go into our next episode is does this belong in the Fictionary? Cool. Somebody thought of that. But it's not used enough to really make it into our dictionaries, or is that such a useful word that instead of, us having to explain, like when someone comes over to your house and they walk into maybe your one of your bathrooms is through your bedroom. So they have to walk through there because someone's taking a number 2 in your main bathroom and your side bathrooms in your bedroom. So a friend walks through there and they're like, wow, there's a lot of clothes on your floor. Do you need to do laundry? And you're like, nah, that's just my wardrobe. Instead of saying, oh no, I don't need to do laundry because that's a clean pile of clothes that is accumulated on my floor because I was having this date on Tuesday. So I was compulsively changing my outfits and then I didn't have time to pick everything up. That took a lot of words. If we think about word economy, that was a lot of breaths. Why say lot word when few word do trick? Thank you, Kevin, from The Office. So if we were to adopt this word into our dictionaries, we could just say, now that's just my wardrobe from Tuesday because I had a big date. Boom. That was so much easier. Now, but maybe, we have to be careful because we don't want to put any kind of word into our dictionary. We want to be selective. So I'm really just trying to change the English vocabulary, really is what I'm trying to do. It's a little pet project of mine. So that's this week's Fictionary or Dictionary. Breaking news coming at you live. I don't know if you heard, but Subway, #EatFresh, is no longer fresh because they now have foot-long churros and cookies. This is maybe one of the most American things I've ever seen in my entire life of 30 years on planet Earth, is that we have one of the most prolific fast food companies on Earth selling a foot-long churro and a foot-long cookie. And your slogan is Eat Fresh. Now you're going to say, Mike, if we actually look at the definition of fresh, they're not saying like fresh as in like fresh vegetables, fresh bread, fresh, healthy ingredients. It's just fresh. So these are fresh churros and fresh cookies. And I don't know if you've ever ate a cookie at Subway, but fresh is the last word I would use to describe that cookie. Now, so maybe they're changing their cookie game. They're trying to rebrand, similarly to McDonald's, is constantly innovating itself. And, I think for a while they were going the whole healthy sandwich route. They had Steph Curry and Tom Brady as kind of spokespeople. And then they realized Americans just want sugar. So let's give them a foot long of sugar. A foot-long sugar stick. That's what Americans want and need, baby. I just want to put this out there because, maybe your mouth is beginning to water and I'm trying to get sponsors, baby. Call me the new Jared for Subway. Well, actually, don't call me that. That guy, cut this. Do not call me that. I do not want to be associated. But Subway is potentially looking for a new spokesperson because for their foot-long churros and cookies. I love churros. I'm a huge cookie guy. I would love to eat a cookie. I'd love to eat your cookie, Subway. So send them my way. would love to partake in that endeavor with you. And thank you so much, you oddballs, for being a part of this. And if you are in Western Washington or even Central Washington, I want to tell you about a show we're doing this Friday at the Rendezvous. That's a hard word to spell. I'll tell you what. It's Rendezvous with an S and no W. We're down in the Grotto Room, which is the lower level of the Rendezvous. It's a kind of a performing center bar. It's got a theater there, but this is kind of an intimate comedy space. And it's a really cool venue. We're doing a show there this Friday, the Oddly Funny Showcase. That's local Seattle comedians telling PG-13 jokes that are oddly funny. It's going to be a great time. I would love for you to come out. Tickets are only $5 online. They're going to be $10 at the door. So I would love for you guys to show up, show out. We're trying to pack that room out. I think it's going to be a hot show, honestly. This, similarly to Dusty Slay's comedy special on Netflix, this is something that you could bring your grandma to. You know, she might have a hard time getting up and down the steps to the Grotto Room, and once she's in there, she's going to have a good time. Bring your uncle, bring your aunt, bring someone who's over 21, because it's a 21 plus venue. So even though the material's PG-13 up, you're going to have to be 21 to get in the door. You know what I mean? Okay. Slide us that ID. No fakes, please. If you haven't heard yet, we are on Patreon now, and we have this beautiful thing. And I just want to share about this community that's being built online on our Patreon. What you can do here is that you can actually see unseen comedy sets from myself. I upload full sets of mine, unreleased content on there. There's actually 2 levels that you can get in on our Patreon. And the first level is the basic bad boy. It's $7.77 every month. You can actually do a 7-day free trial and see if it's for you. You're going to get early access to content. You get the private community there. You're going to get behind the scenes content that isn't released anywhere else. But the premier membership is the oddball tier. That's for $14.77 a month. Again, you can also get a $7-day free trial. You get all the basic bad boy perks, but additionally, you get a monthly special gift in the mail from us, from me. It's going to be different every month, but you get a gift shipped to your house every month. It's going to chuckle. It's going to be something that you're going to love. It's secret. And there's going to be a new gift every month. So you can hop in on that. You will additionally get a weekly shout out on the podcast. Towards the end of the podcast, we will shout you out every week. But as we're starting this new community online, typically only the oddballs would get this. But I'm going to do this for the first 10 basic bad boys or oddballs. The first 10 to join will be the founding fathers and mothers. And you will forever receive a shout out for the tenure of this community. So for as long as this commits, even if you end up leaving the community, you will be a founding father or mother, unless you want to be taken off the list for some reason. We're not going to hold you to it, but if you're cool with it, forever be known as a founding father and mother. So maybe you couldn't found America, but you could found the oddball community, which is really, I wouldn't say it's more important, but what's going to live longer, America or us? Because this will live on the internet forever. So I think if you believe the internet will outlast America, or if you think America will outlast the internet, I don't care what you think about either of those things. I would love for you to be a part of this community, because that's a discussion we could have on there. Honestly, it could be something we talk about. We could make jokes about it. We could riff raff. We could slip slap, not like physically, but just like with fun words. It's a fun community. Okay. It's a community for us, by us, for the people, by the people, baby. Thank you all so much for hopping into another week of the Average Oddcast. As always, my friends, stay funny and stay weird. Peace.
We all live in an oddly funny world. Oddly funny world. Oddly funny world. We all live in an oddly funny world. Oddly funny world. Oddly funny world. Y'all live in an oddly funny world. An oddly funny world. Oddly funny world. We all live in an oddly funny world. Oddly funny world. Oddly funny world.
Great shot.